While it is important to not see yourself as above your community when you attain a higher education, I think that anybody has the ability to become an expert on something that they're passionate about. And I would say that that is one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I was ever given was if there's something in the world that you feel passionate about, then you can be the expert on that something and you can be the person who people consult. You can be the person who helps to facilitate the action necessary to change that injustice or to promote what you're passionate about. And I think oftentimes we rely on somebody else to do it, or we think to ourselves, well, I need to finish my degree first, or I need to, go to graduate school before I can start working on that project. And I'm not sure what it is about our society that has this idea that we need to have permission to be able to do that. But I think more and more we're seeing that young people are engaged members of their community, that they have the resources, they have a framework, they have the ability to leverage their communities to work towards something that they're passionate about, but often feel afraid to do so or feel maybe like they're not supposed to, that they might be stepping on someone else's toes. And I think along with this idea that you can be the expert in your area of passion and interest goes along with this idea that no one person can do it all, right? I tell my students all the time that I'm trying to work on my small corner of the world, right? That I only can control my immediate self, my community here, and that I will try my hardest to shape that to reflect the values that I see as important, to address the issues that I'm passionate about. But I need people to be doing that same thing everywhere, right? If everybody had that same passion, we may be accelerating the pace of social change a bit more. And that we need to be working together. There's not one path, there's not one solution. We need all kinds of social change happening. And I think that's really where the value of diversity comes in, that people have a diversity of perspectives, of understanding the world, of thinking about things that other people don't think about every day. And so when we bring all of those voices together and that social action that's happening in each of our corners of the world, we can build momentum together, and that becomes really important and exciting about the potential for changing the world that we live in.
Yeah, that's that's sort of our vision. I mean, is why we do this work is that hope that every
Yeah.
student and every faculty member and every person who's part of all of this will
Mm-hmm.
figure out where their place
Mm-hmm.
is to be contributing. And I
That's awesome.
remembered as listening to you
Okay.
what I was thinking. I was curious about as someone. I mean, I'm not from Minnesota originally, but what your perspective would be as someone who moved here and has
Oh,
stayed
yeah.
here and is making a home here, like
Absolutely.
growing up in the Midwest and the West.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of what observations, if you want to, would
Mm-hmm.
you want to share about either Minnesota as a whole or communities within Minnesota or
Sure.
anything that you've noticed about
Yeah.
the state?
So I moved to Minneapolis in 2004, and my move to Minneapolis was really exciting. It was the biggest city that I'd ever lived in, and I really felt this sense of home every time I came to Minneapolis. I had visited once before, and I came out for my graduate interview and my graduate school interview, and I just felt like this was the place I wanted to be, and I loved that feeling. And I think the power of home and feeling at home somewhere is really important. Um, and so when I came to Minneapolis, I imagined, because everyone says, oh, Minnesota nice, you're going to have such a good time, that everybody was going to be nice. And everybody is really nice in Minnesota. I won't discount that. But that niceness often is at a very superficial level, at least for people who are not in the immediate community or circle of people. And I know that other people who have moved to the state have said very very similar things, that to break into a circle of friends or to find that sense of community is very difficult because of, I guess people attribute it to the Scandinavian heritage, to the, the white ethnic groups who have largely colonized and settled Minnesota have been very much insular in their own communities, but not necessarily embracing of others. Not that they're exclusive or mean about it, it's just that it's not this like welcome and open-armed place. So it was really interesting to me because I moved here from Kansas, which is also a Midwestern state. But my experiences in Kansas were much different than here. People in Kansas talk to each other in elevators. Like, people are always talking at the grocery store. You have more substantial conversations with strangers than I had ever had. So that didn't happen in Albuquerque either, except when I was with my mother, who grew up in Kansas. And so when I moved to Kansas, I had this really great epiphany, like, oh my gosh, this is where my mother comes from, right? Everybody is talking to everybody in the store. Like, you can't get out of a place for very quickly because people are going to be talking about this or that. And I find that that happens here sometimes, but not very often. And oftentimes you have to be the initiator of that, that it's not going to be coming from the supermarket clerk or, the stranger riding in the elevator with you. And so those have been my observations. But once you break into some of those communities or those cliques, it's really rewarding to be a part of Minnesota community. And I would say, with the passage of the gay marriage right to marry in this state has been really a testament to the values of Minnesotans that I have been hearing so much about, right? That Minnesotans value education, that Minnesotans value a world that is based on equality, that Minnesotans are fundamentally invested in living in a state that protects all of its residents and seeks to create that community. And I would say that I really like that rhetoric a lot, and I like to be a part of crafting that, and I don't want to leave this state. So it's amazing to finally feel very much at home after being here for almost 10 years now, in various parts here in the cities, here in Moorhead. But to feel that sense of community is very powerful and very strong, and wanting to give back to that community, I think, is something that's unique to this particular place in the United States.